Usopp is the worst character in any movie or any anime in any universe ever. Usopp is garbage, end of discussion. Usopp genuinely has no excuse to get scared of most of the things that scare him. I'm in Water 7 and I just cannot stand Buddy. I wish they would have gotten a real sniper. Bumsop. Zenitsu is better than Usopp. He's not a liar all the freaking time and had real knowledge. Never left his friends either. F Usopp. I fucking hate Usopp. That's just a few things the people of the internet have to say about my boy Usopp. I know majority of it is probably slander, but majority of it also is not, and people just, I hate to be that guy, but lack the reading comprehension. So that is why today I'm going to be going through a few reasons why I think that y'all need to chill on Usopp, and also why it's a good time to get your Usopp stocks in, because bro is about to be popping off. I know we've heard this before, but it's serious this time. I think the main thing that majority of Usopp haters forget or just choose not to believe is that Usopp is not meant to be a member of the crew that is, crazy strong, one of the monsters. That's why we have the monster trio. So Usopp will never be a Sanji or a Zoro or a Luffy. He will never be that. He will always try to be because he wants to be a brave warrior of the sea. He will be. That is his dream. Every Straw Hat will complete their dream. Let's just get that clear as well. So Usopp strives to be a brave warrior of the sea, but he has not quite gotten there, just like Zoro isn't the world's greatest swordsman. Sanji is not found the all blue. Luffy's not king of the pirates. None of these Straw Hats have completed their dream yet we only take it out on Usopp. And by we, I mean all those people I just read the comments of. Like the dude who said Usopp genuinely has no reason to be as scared of the things that he sees as he is. My brother, drop that guy in the One Piece world. Half of the shit that they see pre-time skip on the Paradise side of the Grand Line, y'all ain't out there for more than a week. I promise you that. So whatever this guy's talking about, I'm not listening. I got my ears covered because he's just spewing nonsense. Another complaint I see that just doesn't really make sense to me is people hating on Usopp's gag of being scared all the time. I have scared of that island disease or whatever. How are you going to get mad at that when every other crew member has the same, their gag from when they've been introduced is still remain the same, but there's no hate for it? Like, you guys don't complain that Zoro still gets lost. You guys don't complain that Brook is still asking to see panties. Like, we're just moving the bar for Usopp. It really doesn't make sense to me. Building more off of, the why has Usopp not gotten any braver after all this time, after all the islands he's traveled to, why has he not become any braver, at this point? That's because that's not in his character. Like I said, he will never be that monster trio who just leaps into action, unwillingly, not thinking about the consequences. He is, the real human that, is going to assess the situation from a realistic standpoint. So, you have too high of expectations for him. He will never be fearless. And not to be cliche, but that's not what bravery is anyway. Bravery is, not the absence of the fear, but, acknowledging that fear and choosing to, move into action anyway. So that is what we will see from Usopp when he becomes a brave warrior of the sea. He will still be afraid, but he's going to face that fear and do something anyway. And like I said earlier, a lot of these people that talk about this online especially are just trolls, slander. The One Piece community is known for its slander, so I'm all good with that. If it's just jokes, whatever, haha. But if you legitimately hate Usopp, or you think he should have been killed or replaced, anything like that, I don't know how you made it this far in the story. Like, I really hope that you're early on. Even then, I don't know why you would have a reason to hate Usopp early on. Water 7 is controversial for sure, but I mean, if you are a literate reader, you know why Usopp felt the way that he did. He was, he felt like if the crew could get rid of a useless piece that quickly, then he could easily, be replaced as well. He's feeling useless. If you watch Usopp all the way leading up to that breaking point, his argument with Luffy, he is feeling like he does not have a part to play on that crew. Of course, aside from the sniper, he doesn't have much else to contribute. He's not one of the main fighters. So again, there's a reason behind, everything that people have controversy on with Usopp and hating on Usopp. There's usually a good reason or a good counter argument for, whatever they're trying to say. But with all of that hate out of the way, let's get into some of the reasons why, you should be investing your Usopp stocks, why they are on the rise, especially, with the current chapter that just came out. So if you are watching and you're not caught up to Elbaf, or, really any, post time skip One Piece, we'll probably be talking. Yeah, I would just, go catch up and then, come back. Most importantly, beating another dead horse here, but Elbaf is Usopp's island. This is his arc. Like it, hate it, try to deny it. It's just a fact. Usopp will have a pivotal moment in this arc, probably coming. I mean, it looks like we're heading towards the climax of the arc here. So it's literally, unless we go into another flashback, a third flashback, it is, it's on the way. Within the next 10 to 20 chapters, we are going to see, chapter, whatever number, title, Brave Warrior of the Sea. I hope that's what he does. It's been going around for probably ever, way longer than I've been reading the story, but I feel like that chapter title is, a pretty much lock at this point. So with it being Usopp's, destined arc, there's a theory that, I'm going to push that goes along with this that, could be a long shot, but also not really, because you can argue that it's been foreshadowed since all the way back in Arlong Park. But Usopp picking up Ragnar, or, swinging Ragnar, a single attack, even just lifting it would be a feat at this point, because all we know is that Loki, is the only one on Elbaf, at least, that has been capable of lifting it. So it's like a Mjolnir situation. Usopp, as we've seen, a couple times throughout his fights on the crew, Usopp does wield a hammer. And we've seen the 10-ton hammer, the 100-ton hammer. So Usopp, all of these arcs been building up. He's been, increasing the weight. Obviously, they're not all weighing that much. But, he has been increasing the size of the hammer. And now we're in an arc, his island, his arc, where a giant, legendary hammer just happens to be right next to him. Right now, Ragnar's in squirrel form, but at any point, that could turn into a hammer. I could 100% see a scenario where, Luffy is down, the other Straw Hats are down, all the giants, Scopper out of commission, and Usopp is one of the last standing. He looks to his left or right, and, Ragnar's there. It could be a little something cooking up, that's all I'm saying. It's a long shot for sure, but also not really, because, like I said, Usopp has had a hammer in his arsenal ever since Arlong Park. It could have been earlier, but like my earliest remembering is Arlong Park. So he's for sure, he's capable of pulling off an attack with Ragnar, in my opinion. He easily has the strength. That's not a question. The strength it takes to shoot as far as some of the distances that he has is, people have calculated it, and it's inhumane strength. Another thing that would sort of tie Usopp and, the hammer together to a degree would be the parallels between Loki and Usopp. Both of them pretty rough childhoods. Loki did have his dad, but, he was like away trying to better the country, so he wasn't always there for Loki, and he was causing a lot of mischief, trying to get attention. That's very similar to Usopp, who, didn't have his dad, but same thing, would go around spreading lies that pirates were coming and, just causing mischief to get the attention. So they both have very similar backstories. Obviously very similar, like, parental thing, like both their moms got sick as well. Technically Estrid, do we really count that as Loki's real mom? I mean, it's his biological mom, but really his real mom was Ida. So, Ida was poisoned, also died of like a sickness, and then Usopp's mom also died of a sickness. So there are some parallels between the two characters in question, Usopp and Loki, and I could see a scenario where, even Loki is okay with Usopp wielding Ragnar for, like I said, it's not going to be like Usopp keeps it permanently, but like one swing, one attack, even just lifting it would be monumental. And we could also step away from, maybe Usopp, even doing damage or like an attack, because once again, him being brave does not have to be necessarily, him doing damage or, fighting his way out of it. We've seen Usopp with his words, change the tides of the fight. Look at Luffy versus Lucci. Luffy is not winning that fight if Usopp does not show up and tell him to get his ass up, stop coughing up blood and acting like a pussy, and turn around and fight that fucking leopard, or else I'm gonna do it myself. Like, that could be, another it wouldn't be as crazy as, in Usopp picking up a Ragnar, but it's also, I think, more plausible, in the narrative of the story to have Usopp give another one of his, motivational speeches to, maybe even if it's not Luffy, which it probably will be Luffy, like, Luffy went out a little too quick in my opinion. I think he's got to get back up potentially. I'm all good with him going down, but that's a whole nother video. Usopp, yeah, I could see him just using words as well to, kind of solidify that act of bravery, and fulfill his dream. Most recently, we have also seen in 1189 that Usopp was the first one to actually pick up on Luffy getting stabbed. We got the for sure observation hockey indicator, with like the motion lines in the background, and he clocks it. So that is another, Oda is just sprinkling in these little moments, Usopp, standing up to Imu as well, rage baiting him to come to Elbaf in person. Like, it's been building. We are now, like I said, at the climax of Elbaf. So, it's got to happen. It's within the next 10 to 15 chapters, 10 to 20 chapters, at the most. Usopp is going to be having this pivotal moment to probably save the day. Another cool idea I thought about when, I was discussing the chapter with Aiden was potentially, now that Hyrule is also back in the mix, he's getting involved in this fight with Imu, I would really like to see, Usopp and Hyrule with maybe like a little wombo combo, attack that could also, take Imu out, send him back to the Holy Land, or, even just stall for a moment. I would like to see a stand from those two, because it would just make a lot of sense with a lot of the major players on the crew and, on our side going down. We're going to need some people to step up. So who better than, the man who wants to be king of the giants. And then, of course, the man who loves this island more than anything. And this is his go-to destination. This is his hotspot. So, those two teaming up might be enough. It might be enough to save us, at least temporarily. But yes, with that, I just wanted to address some of the Usopp hate, because it's been going around like crazy recently. Obviously not like this week, because Usopp had a substantial feat, so now everybody's hopping over and switching sides. But that's cool. There's still more to come. The less Usopp hate, the better, which is what I kind of wanted to address a little bit. But then also why we should be hyped, why Usopp fans should be psyched with these next coming chapters, because it's on the way, boys. Don't wait. We've been waiting a long time. Usopp isn't even my favorite Straw Hat, but like, I want to see him succeed. His potential in this arc is through the roof right now. So it's definitely a good idea to start funding those Usopp stocks a little bit. Start putting your money into that, because they are definitely going to hit, probably by the end of this year, at the pace that Oda's going at. Make sure to, as always, let me know what you guys think of the Usopp hate down below. Not if you're an Usopp hater, though. Stay the fuck out of my comments. But yeah, if you have any positive thoughts on Usopp, or, theories, anything like that, or, just what you thought of my takes on it, it's always welcome. I'll always be reading comments. So with all that being said, I hope to catch you guys in the next one. Peace.